Hey, it's me. Why? Probably not as long. I doubt there's as many questions. Hi, Man Bear. That's a good idea. It's a really interesting question. um, well, it's the Sennheiser migraine, and it's a pretty real thing, especially on the 5.8. Not so the 5.8 and the 5.8X don't count because they're really the 600 series, but they're not. Um, yeah, the it's probably a little bit more, but it's the same the same frame, and maybe you didn't notice it as much because you've had your 600s for forever. Oh, really? Well, I don't know. For me at least, the 600 series is definitely not as bad, but if you're used to something, I don't know. If you're used to if you're used to like biodynamics, like it's gonna be a lot more than that. Um, but the 50 or like the 558 and the 598, they're awful for clamping force. Yeah, it's really bad. So like you just take one of those foam blocks and you just stretch it the wide way on the foam block and you just let it sit for like literal weeks. I don't know. I mean, it it's funny. It's like Emily loves them because they fit her head perfectly. Like she doesn't need to extend the arms or anything, and then she just puts them on. And she's like, "Wow, these fit great." I'm like, "Those give me a fucking migraine." Yes. Yeah, and same with the V-Moda crossfades, like the tiny ear cups and the. She's like, "Yeah, they fit great. I love them." I'm like, "Okay." And then she tried my crossfades with the XL pads, and she's like, "Why'd you ruin them?" I'm like, "What?" Yes. She's like, "Oh, I don't like these anymore," and I was like, "Okay, I'll get you a pair, and I'll not replace the ear pads, which will save me $20." So that's what I did. She has a pair of stock crossfades, and she loves them. I mean, I'll never understand, but whatever. My I have a 5 head dog. So I didn't get my X2s today. It's kind of sad. A what? You're gonna have to elaborate. interesting. I like the Magpul PMag that's in the back.
So that was the boom badge.
Oh Jesus! I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, you get to go to the range. Looks like your actual badge. Like some of them do like some of them like recognize each other. Like there's all kinds of stuff you can do.
Hmm.
Boom badge, but like some of them connect to Wi-Fi. Some of them like light up when they recognize another badge. If you're wearing like a Pi Zero, yeah, it's like all going on the board. It's like a microcontroller.
Oh shit! You can't hear anyone else. Say something.
So yeah, Danny
Something.
said he can't hear us. He can only hear JDM.
Who?
Danny said in the stream he
God
can
damn
only
it!
hear
I
JDM.
can hear shit through my headphones again. I gotta get other headphones. This is ridiculous.
Don't play music.
I'll unplug real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, so the DEF CON shoot badge, it was the yellow badge, and they soaked it in a banana scent.
Nice.
Like last year, the boom badge was an actual functioning desktop cannon. But I just thought it would be kind of cool, especially because I could put something together like the TV Be Gone, where it kicks, you press a button and it turns off the TVs. It sends out the signals through IR blaster.
So this is why we go live and then we don't actually start right away. Because, hello, webcam, hello. Okay.
Hey, I really like this keyboard.
I mean, I
Oh,
told you you were gonna like it.
I don't know how you just kind of pulled that out of thin air, but that was a really cool trick.
I like turtles.
JDM, you've got your stream going.
Yes.
I'm gonna join the chat. You can add me as a moderator if you want.
Oh, can I?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you want, but you wanted me there moderating it last time.
Yeah.
Fine, I will mod
can
for
we-
you. That's fine.
I don't know how
Shouldn't say
to.
anything.
So you should be able to like click the little 3 dots next to my name and add me as a mod.
Actually, those are called ellipses.
I thought they had
Not
to be
3
horizontal.
dots.
My comp sci teacher, anything that was 3 dots or like 3 lines in a row, always called it a hamburger, regardless of whatever it was. I was like, please fucking stop doing that.
Just stop.
They're called ellipses. Jesus, get it right.
Spaces or tabs.
I didn't know that was like an actual thing. Is that an actual thing?
It's called
It
an
is.
indent. Tab is a drink.
Jesus.
Some people code with tabs. Some people code with spaces.
And that's
It's
why
called an indent. Tab
my
is the
editor
key.
edits that for me automatically. Are you drinking a sour monkey? Is that what I saw?
Hell yeah.
I may or may not have one sitting in front of me as well.
As well.
As well.
I have some ears.
Here.
Oh, yeah. So about that, are we gonna get some nibbling action going?
Hell no. You showed
Man,
Emily that video.
That's
and
the
she's
quickest that I ever got to the weird part of YouTube. It was like 2 videos in. I was like, I'm done.
Like, she's like, what'd you do with your Patreon money? I was like, this is what I got with Patreon this month. And she's like, that really weirds me out. I was like, she's just like looking at the ears. And I was like, yeah, they're ears. Touch them. So
I didn't
she's like,
see this. Share this.
And,
How did I miss this?
What the fuck?
What? Are you guys just now seeing it?
I've not seen this. Where is it?
I held it up on stream.
Oh, well.
Oh, I don't have that open.
It's like
There's
there's
a
a
stream?
delay.
Oh yeah, there's a stream.
What's going on?
So anyway, she's like, well, I was telling her, I was like, yeah, there's Zeus unboxed a pair, but he never did anything with it. So I was like, okay, I kind of got interested then when I saw it. And then there's some other Chinese channel that has a video speaking in Chinese about it. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then the third video is this ASMR girl just like pouring honey on the ears and like licking it off. And that's the whole video. It's like 20 minutes long.
That's great.
There we go. Okay, I saw the ears now.
Emily says, still weirded out.
Top comment from Hey Denny there. ASMR Watt.
Yeah, nah. I'm good. I'm good on that one.
You're not gonna put some server fans next to it?
So why isn't she co-hosting with you this time?
I don't know. She wanted to go watch TV and take a nap or something, but I told her she should come down. Maybe at the end of the stream or something she'll come down.
It's fucking better.
I still have the other chair down here.
Exactly. No excuses.
Literally just now, Ordinance subscribed to me on YouTube. Like, come on. Come on.
I think I had been subscribed before. I just like went through and killed all my subs because I get tired of notifications.
Yeah. So, are we waiting on anyone, or do you want to get started?
No homo.
Federico Garcia Lorca saying he's clicking away to watch the honey girl licking ears.
I'll link the video just for your.
Yeah, I was gonna say put that up.
There's one where she's nibbling, right? There's a girl just nibbling on him.
That's the one I sent you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm ready to start whenever you guys are. Right at the dot, right on the dot of 8.
All right.
So, is there a topic for this AMA, or what's going on?
You must be new here.
Are we wingdinging this?
No, we're Comic Sans.
I'll post it up in Trusted Chat. Link to the Google Sheet.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Alan, are you gonna do the intro?
Do I have a script? Cause
No, absolutely not.
Wing it.
am I
Do it.
am I
Do it.
am I doing this in a voice or am I just doing it in my voice?
Your voice is enough.
Okay. All right. So here we are. This is the JDM Watt Community Serverbuilds.net. We are doing AMA number 8. That's all I got for the intro.
Do not watch video with tax stars on. Why? So what's everybody got going on this week? Anything special? It's been 2 weeks since we last did one of these, right? 2 weeks? 3 weeks?
Give or take, yeah.
Let's see. I, Faultline, have been building 3 different builds now. So my one VM gigabyte 45 Mass Killer build has morphed suddenly into 3 Mass Killer 2 builds. So I'm yes.
It procreated?
It spawned more from other states that just somehow magically arrive. So I'm in the process of trying to find cases for all the other builds because I now have 3 F40s and 3 builds that I can split them up among.
What are you going to do with all these builds?
Try to take over the world.
Are you gonna do
No.
Darker Swarm or something like that?
Yeah. I'm actually gonna see what if I can come up with some VM clustering stuff. I haven't got the license for it yet, but I'm getting ready to purchase the licenses for that, so that I can do some real-time failover and stuff like that between these machines.
It's a bold move, just buying software and not even testing it.
I mean, it'll be tested. It'll be tested on the fly rather. Because Docker Swarm, I'm not as worried about as trying out some live VM stuff.
That's cool.
Are you going to do Swarm or are you going to do Kubernetes?
It's going to be ESX, so it's like vMotion, stuff like that. That's the plan, anyhow. It could all go horribly wrong.
No, I understand you're going to run VMs, but as you were talking about swarming Dockers, are you going to do Docker Swarm or are you going to do Kubernetes?
I'm going to start with Docker Swarm and work my way up. I mean,
Okay.
all of my stuff right now is running off of just a single host, but I might try and migrate some services over to the Swarm. We'll see. Like I said, I've got to get the base part of it working before I start doing anything advanced
Get
past that.
all your VMs up and running.
Yeah, exactly.
Before anyone goes on, Federicio Garcia Lorca in live stream chat, he says, I have a question. Why do people buy these monoprice headphones? They're awful. Or they're horrible, he says. I assume you're talking about the modern retros. If you didn't change the pads on it, you're wrong. You need to change the pads.
We actually have a running joke, and it's how long you can wear the headphones with the stock pads, because it doesn't make any sense. You look at them, you feel them, they feel nice. You put them on your ears, and they make you bleed. So
Record is 10 seconds. That's the lowest time.
I think somebody went 30. But yeah, it wasn't long.
Can you guys still hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds fine.
Or are you adjusting the mic? But yeah, as far as projects, that's kind of in progress. My first Nest Killer came up fine, no problem. Haven't messed around with it too much, but I ended up buying a bunch of the other builds with stuff already in them, so I'm now just waiting for cases. And time. Always time.
Fault, you bought those from Eagle, right?
Yeah, the lot 2 and 3.
Heads up, those boards, like that series of CPU, is only supported on ESXi up to 6.5.
Yep, that's what I'm running.
Okay, just making sure.
I'm not gonna live on the cutting edge of that stuff. That's for
Well,
people with real money.
If you're playing with the Docker and the swarming, you might need some of the newer versions just for driver support. Just FYI.
I haven't had that in my case yet, but we'll see.
Yeah. The biggest
Even if I
restriction.
don't swarm.
The biggest restriction I've seen running with ESXi because it has very limited NIC drivers that it's happy with. Like
Right.
many times we've had to install auxiliary PCI NIC slots because the onboards were just not fucking happy.
Yeah, and I've done some initial testing with this one that's up and running, but I haven't done anything super crazy with it, and it's worked just fine so far. So I am hopeful that it will go smoothly. Meanwhile, headphone and mic chat is blowing up.
Hey, at least some people are interested in the
Hey,
subset of content that I make.
That's right. The subset of contact that's currently behind your shoulder. This is a Christian Yoga Blocks server, and
All right, who's next?
I don't have much going on this weekend. I am gonna be able to finally test my. I bought the NAS Killer 2.0 back when the board was first put up, and I just haven't had the time to get all the components and everything tested. So I finally got my power supply from the B stock sale, and I'm gonna give it a quick test to make sure everything works, and then I'll be ready to build sometime later on.
Sweet. Man Bear?
Let's see. still got a bunch of shit going on. Basically, the main thing is my gaming rig. Planning on getting that all buttoned up tomorrow. I just bought another 480 gigabyte NVMe today. Because I don't need it, but I bought it anyways.
Was that the processor that you won from Intel?
Yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
the 8086K. I have that installed, motherboard installed, RAM, and water cooler. Just need to move over a 1080 Ti and install the water cooler on that.
It's a pretty easy process to do that.
Yeah.
It's not too complicated.
Yeah, hoping to do that tomorrow morning whenever I wake up. Other than that, not too much. Server-wise, at least.
Trying to figure out my mic. Am I like louder or too loud now?
Somebody's
Nice.
buzzing.
That's you, JDM, that's buzzing.
Hmm.
Do you have like high gain on it or something?
Not high gain. It's just
Tell us live stream
what
chat.
about now?
Ooh, that sounds better.
You're good.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. Let's see how this goes. Sorry for the audio issues. I wonder if it's because the
actually
ears are plugged in or not. I
I'm
don't know.
still hearing a little bit of a buzz.
Hmm.
Buzz, buzz, buzz.
Wonder why.
Please stand by. We are having technical difficulties.
This is interesting.
Somebody sounds mechanical. Like they're having packet loss or something.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Does it sound the same or does it sound worse?
sounds the same. The buzzing's kind of faint, so I think I can deal with it. It's not a big deal.
Okay. Started when I was messing with the gain before you don't change the mic. Okay. I'll just disable the ears entirely.
Was the ears so you could have room noise?
No,
So
I was messing with it
they're your
earlier
cats?
and I figured why just I'll just leave it. So I put the game back to whatever it was before. If it's fine now, if someone's watching, tell me if everyone else is too loud or if I'm too loud. Because that's my... If everything else is fine, I'm concerned about that. Anyway. Let's see. Ordinance, what's up?
Well, I think the last anime I was talking about getting my PoE switch installed. Finally got that done last week. Got some wires running my house. Got my LRs centrally located. Ran a bunch of wires last weekend. I gotta get my PoE cameras hooked up this week.
What PoE cameras?
There's some cheap, like 1080p Chinese, put them on a VLAN kind of cameras. But
Ones
I'm
that
pretty.
report all of your moves to the authorities.
That's why they go to VLAN. But I'm pretty impressed with the quality for the price. Like, it's really good, and the IR's really quite got long range.
Well,
Do they have illumination on them, or is it just the going off of ambient IR?
Yeah, they've got built-in IR.
Okay.
Probably got the IR rings, right?
It's like IR modules, and then they're in a ring. Like, I've never seen this kind of IR arrangement, but it works pretty well.
Cool. AZ, you still here? No? Cool. Alright, well, what I dragged off screen earlier was... God. This thing. This is a NAS Killer 1.0. And I'm just going to hold it up. This is a NAS Killer 1.0. And I've got 6 1TB hard drives in it, 128 gig SSD, 8 gig of RAM, and a freezer 12, and a power supply. And it's in a N400, and I'm working on ZFS on Ubuntu and seeing how it works and if I like it or not. And I've been wanting to mess around with Linux for a while, so I'm working on a Linux box. In non-server world stuff, everyone that bought stuff from me this week, I'm shipping it out first thing tomorrow. Sorry about that. I've been kind of busy all week. I got the mini DSP ears this week. I got a mini DSP 2x4 HD, which is super fun to play with. I'm going to be doing a couple videos on that, and that's just, of course, it's audio related, so I know most of you don't care about that, but let's see, what else?
Is that a Noctua fan? Like, when did you become a high roller?
I just had Noctua. Like, I have 2 desktops, and they had all Noctuas in them, so just kept using it, I guess. Oh, I switched my main desktop from my 7700K build to an E5 2687W, which is what I'm streaming on right now. So if you see all the 8 cores at the bottom, that's what I'm talking to you on. That's what I'm streaming on right now. And
how has that affected your performance?
I used to be at like 35% CPU usage at 10 megabit streaming, and now I'm at like 19%. That's pretty good. And I also don't have hyperthreading turned on right now, so that's pretty cool.
What's the reason why you don't have it on?
So hyperthreading, it interacts oddly with certain games and applications, and I would say about 60% of the time you lose a little bit of performance, and times where you don't lose performance, it just stutters more. So it doesn't look like you're losing FPS or dropping FPS. It'll just like hang up for a second, and then it won't actually pass through to the benchmark or whatever test you're running. So I think other people can attest to this, like Dwell. He turned hyperthreading off and got a huge improvement. But honestly, with games, I've only played a couple of rounds of PUBG, but I'm actually seeing better performance in PUBG, even though this is 3.8 turbo max. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. I really like the system, but the 7700K just wasn't being used for what I needed it to. So
nice.
Yep. Who just left? Was that Dwell?
Yeah, I think Dwell had
Must have
AFK
said his
or
name
something.
too many times.
Twick.
You look into the mirror and say it 5 times, and then he appears with the lights off.
You say it once, and 5 of them appear.
That's only if you're lucky. Okay. That's everybody, right?
Yep. Go ahead and get started on the first question, and I'll hop in.
Okay, I'll take the first one. Let's see. The anniversary build, CPUs and motherboard still have a lot of life in them. Yes, they do. Why are they so inexpensive from refurbs?
Companies need to upgrade.
Yes.
Contractually, a lot of
companies-
times they have to upgrade.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes
two,
they-
2, 3, sometimes 4 years. Big companies, and even some that are comparatively not as big as, you know, ones that are running like Facebook or whatever, stuff like that. They have to upgrade so often that, you know, 2 to 3 years. So they need way more performance than you know, what they're able to get. They need to go more dense. They need to get more cores, and they're serving up millions of people.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they're on lease, so after 2 or 3 years, the lease goes off, and then they just poof. The leasee company, if that's the right word, I can't remember the right word. Lessor, whatever the fuck it is. Sorry for swearing. They just sell them off then, because they're off lease.
A lot
Well,
of times when the warranty expires, that's when we
Right.
stuff, even if it's a perfectly fine server.
Yeah.
It's just because if it goes down, we need next day or same day support. So it's cheaper to buy a new server than it is to extend those warranties a lot of times.
yeah, and I mean, those are all good points, but also regular market rules apply. So if a company has 1,000 motherboards and they're all off lease and they get offloaded to a hardware reseller, 1,000's a lot to sell on like the refurb market. Like, who's gonna buy 1,000 replacement motherboards for, you know, whatever particular server they're running? It's just not gonna happen. So
Yeah.
it's really up to people like us, and we do drive the market, and I think we have a bigger effect and influence on it than any of us think, really. Because I mean, look at the price of the Supermicro motherboards, especially the 2011 ones, since this community started, which was about a year ago. Back then, you could get Supermicro boards for like low 200s for a dual socket 2011, and in like ATX were like mid 250, you know, something like that. Now they're well over 300. I just think the supply, especially on the refurb market's gone away. But this new Gigabyte board and the old Gigabyte board, there was a lot of them, and they weren't selling. Like the NAS Killer 2.0, it was on eBay for like 6 months, and I think they sold like 20 or something like that. And then we sold about 550 or something like that in 3 weeks.
Yeah, it was something crazy.
So, and I say we sold, like we didn't sell anything. I'm not sponsored or anything like that. It's
We
just,
heavily influenced that, though.
we have
we
heavily
influ- we-
influenced with no kickback. Like we're not
Yes.
we're not affiliated or getting paid, although we do have a contact with them, but we're not like receiving monetary gain from them. So
The contact is to help everybody out.
yeah, and this is so. But anyway, it really just depends. But I think let me read the question again. Yeah, I mean,
Why are they so inexpensive, basically?
yeah, I
Just
think
companies need to get rid of them. That's
Yeah.
all
Right.
it is. They've upgraded, and they need to dump all that stuff, and they
and if they can
give it
make
to
some of their,
resellers. They set it on eBay.
if they can make 10% of their investment back, like that's great. You know, I think that's more than a lot of companies expect. So, just being able to do that is, you know, that puts more money in their pocket towards new hardware.
The last company that I worked for was so large that it wasn't worth their time to deal with any of the stuff that they decommissioned. They literally just gave it to resellers. They said, "We don't want any money for it. Just take it.
Yep.
We need to get rid of it right
Yeah,
now."
we don't want to pay you to pick it up. So if you pick it up for free, you can have it.
And there's a
Take-
lot of companies that do that. They're just so big they don't care. It's not
Yeah,
even
They just
counted as
pick
a
up
loss.
they pick up pallets of stuff.
Yeah.
Next question. Somebody else is gonna have to take this. I don't know.
All right.
You said, can I bump real quick? You said bump up the audio. Are you talking about like your audio or my mic, or just
Both.
in general?
Yeah, everything. We got a comment saying that everybody's really quiet with people having it maxed out. So maybe bump it up 3 decibels or 6 decibels.
Huh. Okay.
Okay. Next question. Anybody? Anybody at all?
Yeah,
I'm back. Sorry about that.
On the 10 gig NICs, those Quantio ones.
Read
I
the
see-
question.
Read the question.
Okay. Any recommendations for a 10 gig NIC to put in a desktop PC? The Intel X540 and X550 cost as much as the anniversary build.
Yep.
I've seen a Quantia on Amazon, but there aren't many reviews. So those are Quantia ones. They don't have a whole lot of reviews under the Quantia name. There's a rebranded one by Asus.
The
that has
Asus
a
ones
ton
I've
of
used
reviews.
is great.
Yes.
So I have not used the Quantias.
It's just a rebrand, so
And the Quantia ones are, they're like, there's a couple models. The gaming one's $90, and I think the regular Pro is $80. I'll link this in chat, and I'll probably link in the description of this video as well. But these are, from everything I've heard, they're pretty good. But again, it's only single port for $80, and if you can get an X540 on eBay for I think 130 for a dual port.
I mean, and those are 10 gig Ethernets.
Yeah,
and
they're
if you're
10 gig base T, not
base
SFP.
T. Yeah, not SFP.
Not
If you need
SFP plus,
SFP,
right.
yeah, if you need SFP plus, you can get like one of those. What is that? Mellanox, like a Connect X2, X3.
Yeah, or the Chelsea stuff. I use the Chelsea
Chelsea's.
stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of options for SFP plus, and base T is the reason it's so expensive. You can use your existing infrastructure for the most part.
Right.
So you don't have to rewire everything, and I think the protocol's a little bit more expensive technologically. So yeah. And part of the expense with SFP plus is the cable, because there's firmware on the cable. There's like little what are they called? The
Like a transceiver.
yeah.
Well, the interface has to know what it's using, and there's different cable types.
Correct.
So the cable has to be able to say, "This is what I am. This is how you use me."
Yeah, but there's also like
That's what she said.
there's also different firmware and stuff on cables. Like you have to make sure the cable is compatible with the card you're using, because there are some instances where an SFP plus cable will not work on a certain card. Although I think it's pretty rare.
The cards are more forgiving. It's like switches. A lot of the switch companies lock their ports down.
Okay. So yeah, these are a decent option, but just keep in mind they're, single port.
Cool.
And this is one of the reasons that we really like the Intel motherboard, because if you buy two, then you can direct link them. And you don't have to buy more 10 gig stuff. You might as well just buy another motherboard and start another build, right?
That's always the best advice.
Direct Connect is going to be the best and easiest to configure and mess with, and then you can add or use another interface for the rest of your network.
Hey, no spare parts, only unfinished projects, right?
That's right. Hence my stack of builds.
That's a really good question. So Control Alt Delete says, I'm not sure if I'm alone in this, but a video on all of the BIOS settings, or the most important ones for the Anniversary 2011, and I'm also assuming the NAS Killer 2 would make a nice video. Yeah, it's a lot to go through, and part of the problem with the BIOS is that it's going to be different for everyone's setup, at least in a little bit. It depends on what OS you're running, depends on what hardware you're running, and there's a lot of commonalities and things that you should change or things like that. But we do plan on doing something like that. We just have to sit down and do it. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take more time than a hardware build video. So hopefully that would help. But I assume most of you will be done your builds by the time that comes out anyway. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
With the BIOS settings, it's like you said, just it's a very specific to what motherboard you have. And there's a lot of settings in each specific motherboard. So just doing one video for each one, it's a lot. And they're pretty much basically a lot of the same settings. Like, you can figure it out.
Can't hear me at all.
Yeah, you need to bump up your audio because you're talking pretty quietly when you're speaking, or at least it's perceived as being very quiet.
This is not like I'm just not talking loudly. I guess I don't know.
Put the microphone in your mouth.
I hear him just
I
fine.
Suppose. I wonder.
I think what's happening is Discord is bumping up the volume in Discord, and so we're hearing it fine in Discord, but I think YouTube's probably not doing that.
Time to call in the co-host to monitor your audio levels.
I need a Jamie.
Time to upgrade that ass.
You need a Jamie.
Let me set myself to 160 and see if that changes anything. It's still not peaking. Like it's not even in the yellow. It's in the green.
Yeah, but it should be hitting the yellow pretty frequently when you're speaking or using plosives.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get it there.
Have you tried turning it off and throwing feces at it?
That's unfortunate. I wonder if it's Well, hopefully that makes it a little bit better. We'll see.
Perfect. Should hopefully be slightly better. Next question.
Let's skip that one and come back to it.
Okay.
When you're evaluating builds, such as the anniversary build, do you find the motherboard first, or do you find the motherboard to fit the idea of the build?
So what Pars is asking is, do you find a motherboard and build around that, or do you come up with a build and then look for a motherboard? I think they're just asking which way you work.
Yeah. For these past two builds, it was definitely I found the motherboard. I'm gonna make this work because the motherboard is such a freaking good and amazing deal.
I've witnessed this happen where he's just sending us links. Guys, look at this board. Guys, oh my god, check this out. Guys, you won't
buy it now. Buy it now. Buy now. Buy now.
Like, guys, this has 10 gig and SAS on board and
by the time it's like the fifth motherboard, like some of us are checked out. We're like, okay, it's only been 20 minutes. I can't handle much more.
Yeah, does anyone want to tell the story of what happened with the NAS killer build when I think it was just like everyone was kind of coming in one by one, and I'm like, hey, you should check this out, and they're like, I don't need that, and then
literally everybody was like, I don't need that, and one by one we all fell like dominoes.
Yep.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It became like a hazing thing. Like I'd be like, oh, hey, Ordinance is here. Hey, Ordinance, you hear about this motherboard yet? You should totally buy this.
I'm immune to the JDM influence.
Well, you're a special snowflake. That's why. But yeah, in that case, okay. Yes, I'm totally plugging myself here. Patreons get early access to hardware deals and things that are in the works like that. So I think they had early access to the anniversary build for about 3 weeks, maybe a little bit less, about 2.5 weeks. So that build was in the works for a while. We really wanted to polish that and make sure that was the way it needed to be before it came out, because that was gonna be the first one on the guide, on the site, and everything like that.
Right.
But other times, I mean, usually the motherboard is the basis for the build. But sometimes if we need a little NAS killer build, we'll look for like micro ATX build or motherboards and stuff like that, and build something off of that. But
Yeah, usually the
Yeah,
motherboard comes first, though.
processors don't really change too much. I mean, you can order hundreds of those, and the price kind of goes up and down. I think there's a lot more processors out there, so it seems kind of like we have less influence on that. So we already kind of know like what processors are out there at what prices. So it makes it a little bit easier when you're looking at the motherboard first.
For sure. Then you get the motherboard and you know what size it is, so you know what kind of size case you need.
yeah, so a lot of times it just sometimes it's a combination of parts. Sometimes it's like a combo deal, like the NAS Killer V1 was a combo deal, and super easy to make a build out of that. But
That was super random.
God, and sometimes we're just trolling eBay and there's nothing that comes up, and it's just dead. And we're happy to sit on the NAS Killer, or not the NAS, the anniversary build for a little while, because that was a big deal and it's still in stock and people are still dealing with that. So it's going to be hard to pass the one or to top that one, but I think it's going to be hard to top that. So
Yeah, it's pretty robust. There's a lot of build options for it.
I would say the only really big downside is the fact that it's SSI EEB and it's not like ATX or something like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty large.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do we want to move on to the next one? I think that one's covered.
Yeah.
Blue Camel asks, FreeNAS versus Unraid versus ... question mark. I think Blue Camel, if you're here, speak up, forever hold your peace. But I think what we were trying to go for with that is just kind of compare what are the options of FreeNAS as a NAS appliance type OS and Unraid versus some other operating system. Pros, cons?
We get this question a lot. Unraid, for most people, it does 99% of everything that you want it to do. If you're doing stuff for a production environment, probably look towards FreeNAS. Or if you have a higher budget, maybe look towards FreeNAS.
It depends on what your needs are. I mean, they're two different tools.
Oh, yeah.
They're two sides of the same coin.
But if you're going to go FreeNAS, you better plan way ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, Unraid's great if you know that you're going to start with, a small amount of drives or one drive and add as you go. Unraid's the way you want to go with that, because you can expand your storage as you upgrade to more drives, and FreeNAS, you really can't do that.
FreeNAS, I think it's kind of a highly advanced, set it and forget it. Once you get it set up, don't mess with it anymore. That's a big component to it. It's highly performant, but you can't sit there and tinker with it, add and remove stuff.
Yeah, Unraid seems more of like a playground to me, where you can do things whatever you want, add whatever you want, add a bunch of VMs, do Docker, change your hard drives, add hard drives. I mean, you can do kind of whatever you want with Unraid. FreeNAS, you can do the same things. It's just a little bit more complicated. Takes a lot more planning. Drive configurations are going to be more expensive because you have to add drives in chunks, basically.
And your drives in the array have to match. It's pretty much literally software RAID with FreeNAS, so everything has to be exactly the same.
Yeah, so there's definitely limitations to that. And then I guess there's other options out there like Exponology, although I don't know that I would recommend anyone run that. I don't know what the data integrity of that is like, but some people run it and it's great, I guess.
Blue Camel did actually show up in the chat. He's saying, sorry, I know that's vague, but it's mostly leaning towards Unraid. mainly for Docker, unsure about reliability versus hardware RAID. I love that about FreeNAS, but the lack of Docker is a bummer. So I think that's kind of what we're leaning
FreeNAS
towards.
have Docker?
FreeNAS had Docker in the edition we don't speak of, Corral.
Oh, God. Okay.
Yeah, they had built in a
Yeah.
Docker implementation, which worked great. Too bad the rest of it was a flaming.
If you're asking yourself this question, the answer is go for Unraid, because there's not enough
Yes.
downsides to go the other way.
Yeah, when you step into FreeNAS, you're gonna know exactly what you need, and like JDM said, it's Unraid's more of a playground. You can add and subtract things as you're still figuring it out.
FreeNAS is very unforgiving to learn on, and that's what I cut my teeth on, and that's what I still use. I still use FreeNAS. I like it. I've used Unraid a couple times, and Unraid's great, and and just for that reason, I'm going to recommend Unraid. It's from a FreeNAS user's perspective, if I had to do it all over again, I would probably have gone Unraid.
I also started with FreeNAS and switched to Unraid and haven't looked back. So,
But
And you are an Unraid shill.
can you offer any perspective on what the switching process was like?
painful.
Yes. So that's part of
So
the problem.
I had like 14 terabytes of data that I wanted to try and keep. 4 I offloaded to my roommate's computer. We just, linked a shared partition over the network. And the other 10, I bought like a 10 terabyte drive that I offloaded almost everything else onto, and then started up my new server with those drives, right? So I wanted to salvage as much as I could and then just nuke everything else. And then if you don't have the storage to save everything, switching later in the game is painful because you can't carry that data over. As soon as you reform a RAID or you move to Unraid, you're reformatting all those drives. Nothing's going to be retained. So you need to plan ahead. And Unraid is far more flexible in scaling up your storage than FreeNAS will ever be. But FreeNAS is much better in different performance vectors. So, I mean, they're very different tools. Yes, they both store data. That's like saying, a Porsche versus an 18-wheeler. They both drive on the road. They both have wheels, but you use them for very different things, right?
And they can both get 2 people from point A to point B.
Right, right.
Yeah.
What's the majority of what are you going to use it for? Pick the right tool for the right job.
So to add a little bit to the switching part, I was considering for a while, and some people know this, that I was considering for a while switching to Unraid. And realistically, it was going to cost me about a month of my time in transferring data and about $1,500 to $2,000 to have enough drives to transfer a section of my array over to Unraid, and then sort of hop my drives. So like once I transferred a section over, I would shut down that part of the array, pull them, reformat them, put them in the Unraid box, transfer another section of data. It's just too much. I'm not.
Go ahead.
No, it's just too much to do.
For people who aren't familiar, tuning in late to the Discord, things like that, what size is your array roughly and usable?
Usable.
You can
I don't
round.
know. It's like 1/5 of a petabyte.
When you sigh
200-ish
before you answer the
terabytes.
question,
Yeah,
you
it's
know it's a
a
lot
lot.
of data.
Yeah.
I do gotta ask, AZ, what made you switch from FreeNAS to Unraid? Because people might be curious.
I'm a very technical guy, and then trying to do a rebuild, I had split my volumes. So I started with like 5 4-terabyte drives with in basically a RAID 5, so 1 disk of parity, 4 disks for storage. And I wanted to grow that, but you can't grow an existing VDEV, so you have to create new VDEVs. But I wanted it to be part of the same cache pool of data, So you can add VDEVs, but what that basically does is if you create another RAID 5 and slap it in there, now it becomes what they call a RAID 50, right? You have two RAID 5s, but they're striped across each other. So it's great for performance, but if you have any disk fail in there and you're unable to repair it,
You're in trouble.
it now is in a degraded state. And
What
if
would
you
normally
use
take
another
out
one,
one
you'll
dr-
lose everything.
Yeah, if what would normally take out one 5-drive array would now take out a 10-drive array.
Right.
But there are other options. There's
Right,
RAID
but-
5.1.
You have to buy all your storage. All your disks have to be the same size. All your disks need to be purchased and used from the get-go. So you have to know this is my target storage and this is what I plan on using over the next 2 years with no flexibility. So the average home user is just not going to know that. So I would steer them away from that, because unless you know exactly what you're doing and exactly what your needs are, Unraid is going to be a much more flexible option.
Yeah, and like,
Yes.
if say you're 18 years old and you want to get into the home server stuff, and you build a 15-bay Rosewell Unraid box, and it's an old 15 hard drives, and you got 2 hard drives that you bought yourself, you can go for Christmas and you can say here, or Christmas, whatever holiday you celebrate, and you can say, look, here's a $100 hard drive, here's a $150 hard drive, here's a $200 hard drive. If you want to give me something for Christmas, this is what you can buy me. And they can buy you whatever. And you can shove them in there and they'll work, and they'll add storage to your NAS or your server.
Yeah. It's like we said,
Can't do that with
right. With
FreeNAS.
FreeNAS, you cannot do that. You need to way plan ahead, have everything in hand, and just do it.
Yeah, so my last FreeNAS expansion was 16 4-terabyte drives, and they're SAS drives, and they're 7.2K RPM. Great drives. Hitachi, work great. I added all 16 at a time at one time, and I was like, this is going to be great. This is going to be this will last me a couple years. Well, it was so much power that it now tripped my breaker. So can't use that array right now. But if I were in Unraid, I wouldn't necessarily have that problem, because I wouldn't be planning on adding 16 drives at the same time.
You could add 2 or 3 at a time, or 1 or 4 or whatever you want.
Yeah. The storage efficiency of Unraid is much higher as well. So
Also, yes.
because you can get up to 100% or just about what is it, like 95% full?
I wouldn't go past 90 personally, but you can push it to 95 if you want.
Yeah, FreeNAS. I have a picture in the blog chat in the Discord. Let me pull it up real quick. So I actually hit. Wait, is it blog or is it announcements? Announcements. So I actually hit 80%. 80% full on FreeNAS.
And you took a performance hit, didn't you?
Yes, I went from 600 megabytes per second transfer down to 41 constant.
Right.
Oof.
Yeah. It does not handle full volumes. It's intended for performance, right? It is an enterprise-ready solution that you don't want to be running 80-90% full. You're just going to have a bad time.
Yeah, and it's very clear about that, mind you. Like, these limitations getting into it with FreeNAS. Like, FreeNAS is very upfront. It's like, these are the guidelines and restrictions that you need to consider, you need to follow.
Right. Unraid allows you to use multiple different drive sizes throughout the whole array with no penalty, right?
Yeah, and
as long as your parity drive is equal to or bigger than your largest storage drive, you're fine. You're going to be covered.
Yeah, and Unraid, that 90% is not like a hard-coded thing into the OS. It's like, you probably shouldn't go over 90%, but you can.
Right. You want to fill it up to
FreeNAS
where there's
is like
20 gigs left. You can
FreeNAS
do that.
is like dropping the hammer at 80%, and it's like,
right.
I got an email notification. It's like, your array is above 80%. Please, consider change. Yeah, take measures to do something about it.
So currently, FreeNAS is in the works of being able to add more drives to an existing array. They're not there yet. But
They
the
still have to be the same
ability
size.
of Unraid, yeah, they still have to be the same size, recommended to be the same manufacturer. You don't want to start mixing and matching on there. But with Unraid, you can take Seagates and Hitachis and Western Digitals, and you can have 1, 2, 3, 8, 6, 12 terabyte drives, all these sizes, and you'll get to use 100% of each one of those.
I don't agree with the manufacturer part. I don't think that matters with FreeNAS.
The only variance is if you have like different one's a 7200 RPM with different cache sizes versus the other being 5900 or 5200 or 5400 with a smaller cache size. It can slow down everything to the weakest link.
Well, of course, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, obviously it'd be less than ideal, but I don't think it's not going to cause any like showstopper.
No, it's not going to break
Yeah.
anything, but it will. Everything is dependent, so it's much better to be just consistent and have everything equal, so you're not creating extra variables for you to combat when you're having system
Sure.
performance issues and things of that nature.
I was just saying, just to be clear, it's not gonna. We were talking about like showstopper sort of things before, but that is
Sure.
not a thing that will.
It's not recommended. How's that?
Yeah.
So it's a great tool. I don't think FreeNAS is a bad tool. It is just a very different tool than most people in this Discord, in these servers, are looking for. Right?
Now, however, I will say one thing about FreeNAS. If you want to get a cheap NAS setup for like strictly personal data and like pictures and movies that you cannot replace, get a bunch of low hour SAS drives. Get like, I don't know, let's say 5 or 6, and run them in in Z2 or Z3 on FreeNAS with low power hardware, 8 gig of ECC, and run that strictly for not media, but files you cannot replace.
Just straight up backup.
Yes, and that is a really, really good use for FreeNAS for a lot of people. FreeNAS is extremely low overhead. It's extremely adaptable.
It has snapshot capability for, like you said, you're doing backups. You can integrate snapshot technology with, doing all your net backup. It's fantastic.
It has all kinds of plugins like rclone and
it's a great tool.
Yeah, so there are uses for it, even if it's not the most ideal thing for media server use.
Right.
So
there's just a lot more pros for Unraid in this aspect for what people are doing for the most part than there are for FreeNAS. Like I said, I don't think any one of them is better than the other just on their own merits. They both have their pros and cons. There is no one-stop shop for all storage that's the best at everything. That just doesn't exist.
Yeah, there never will be.
Right. There's just too many variables and vectors. You have to choose the right tool. And that's why we're here, is we can help you shape that decision.
Right.
You ask questions. What are you going to use it for? Well, I want to run 10 VMs and have my storage really be one of the main focal points. Well, then FreeNAS is going to be a much better option for you than Unraid.
Yeah, if you want to run iSCSI and stuff like that. I mean,
right. Yeah. Block level storage.
But
things
yeah,
like that.
if you're doing it for media, the storage efficiency and adaptability of Unraid is, I mean, it can't be beaten right now. There's no other product on the market that can do it.
And it's very consistent and reliable.
Yep.
And you can throw a lot of different shit at it, and it handles it fairly well.
The next question is kind of related. He says, Blue Camel says, thoughts on RAID 5.0 on the GA7P SH2. 5.0 is pretty awful. Don't run 5.0. If you're going to run RAID, use Unraid or FreeNAS for the most part.
I would not recommend anybody running RAID 5.0.
If anything, like 6.0 maybe, but like
10.
Even then,
just go 10.
Yeah, but it's still half your storage though. Like the problem with RAID 10, so it's RAID 1 and then RAID 0 across, right?
Right.
So it's just take, say you have 10 8 terabyte drives, so it's 80 terabyte. let's say it's 80 terabyte usable. I know it's not. Let's just
Right.
say it is. In RAID 10, that's 40 terabyte usable. I mean, performance is good, and you have a
It's-
1-to-1 copy. So if you, I don't know, it's all right.
Right. If you're going to do a stripe set of volumes, just do stripe mirrors is my point, instead of like a stripe RAID 5 or stripe RAID 6s.
Yeah.
You're going to have a bad time. You're just going to have a bad time.
And for media, it's really pointless. If it's for actual personal data or
Yeah. If it's
Very-
mission critical data, things that
Right.
you really want to, then
exactly,
Well, here's the other thing. If
capacity is not your main
Here's
issue.
the other thing that we, for some reason, keep forgetting to talk about. With Unraid, if you have 10 drives and you lose drive 3 and you have no parity drives, you're only losing the data on drive 3.
yeah,
That's
I was
correct.
going to mention that earlier. I forgot about it.
Yeah, you can actually shrink the existing array minus the one drive, and you'll only be missing the data that was physically stored on that drive.
Yeah.
And you'll retain all the other data. And Unraid does not split files, right? It'll split folders across multiple drives, but it never splits files across drives.
And
So
if you have a parity drive, you can still rebuild that missing drive.
So if
Correct.
you have a parity drive, then you can rebuild it. If you lose your parity drive, you just rebuild the parity drive.
Correct. It will run in emulation mode if you lose a data disk. If you lose a parity disk, you just run normal with no parity, right?
Yeah, then you put it in a new drive, and then you hit calculate parity, and you're good to go.
Right. You rebuild parity. That's it.
If you lose the drive plus the parity while you're trying to rebuild, then you lose them both plus the data on the drive, but it's only that single drive.
Only the second drive will you lose the data. You're still emulating the data on the first.
Yes. Well,
And
I meant
What
if you
sort
lose
of performance?
if you
hit
lose the data drive plus the cache drive, you just lose that single data drive.
what sort of performance hit do you have with the emulation?
0. The same exact performance. I've done it.
Really?
Yep. It will read at the same speeds and write at the same speeds.
That's insane. That's actually insane. Okay.
Unraid for
I
the
learned
win.
something today. What got you started doing this, and what keeps you doing it? Aside from any money you make, if any. Well, the money I make is from Patreon, and my YouTube makes all of literally about 50 cents to $1 a day. So nothing significant. So thank you to everyone that supports me on Patreon. It's very helpful. It lets me buy things like the mini DSP ears, and hopefully I get to play around with stuff like that. And it also pays for the builds and the hardware, and at least helps pay for it. Geez, I don't know, man. Bear, what got us started?
We just enjoy the shit.
Plex.
Yeah.
I can tell you what drives me is I do IT work, systems administration for my job, right? And I've always been a media hoarder from back in the day when I was burning stuff on CDs, right? And finding Plex and finding the community on Plex, first on Reddit, then on Discord, and then finding all the people that I communicated on Discord, migrating into JDM's Discord channel. It was a natural progression, and the more I helped people, the more I helped myself. I got better with what I learned, what I know. It makes me better at my job. I just like playing with hardware and software. Not just a hobby, but it's also work. So it just,
Yeah, you talk to more people and you learn new things every day, and
Yeah.
that just helps out.
you're always learning. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
today I learned.
The cool thing about learning this stuff is that if you work in IT, it's only going to help you. Anything that you learn in here from doing these builds, it's not going to hurt you one bit.
Absolutely. You'll be
And-
surprised at how much translates in day to day.
Yeah, and don't think that like the hardware it's so old, like it's not relevant or anything like that. It's not the case at all. I mean, there's so many,
The same concepts.
so little has
transcend
changed.
hardware.
Yeah. Whether it's a Xeon version 2 or 1 versus a V4 or 3, it's the same.
Yeah, like
same
opening up the
bananas,
socket and putting the thermal paste on and screwing the heatsink and all that's the same.
Right.
Electrically it's different, but you don't need to care about that. What you need to care about is finding the right processor. So if your company's like, hey, it's spec out a build or something, you know what to look up. You've had experience with Xeons, and you say, oh, these are 2011 Xeons. Like, these are what these are capable of. Well, we need to look for certain kind of RAM and things like that. And you might know what the Dell R710 is, for example. You're like, oh, well, they make a 720 and a 730. And you look at them and you're like, they're the same thing, but just newer. So things like that. What really got us started was the Plex Discord, or not the Discord, Plex subreddit.
We saw a need for it, where people were looking for stuff that what can we make a Plex server out of?
It was constant. It's constant. Like there was a rule there that, I mean, there still is a rule there. It's like no hardware posts except for like in the weekly threads that are like hardware help, and it just kind of tiring that everyone wants to build like an i7 server or something like that, and then it really just started with. I wonder if I can.
A lot of people didn't know about used enterprise grade hardware that was available out there, right?
Oh yeah.
As Facebook buys new editions of hardware and Google, they're dumping their Gen 1 and Gen 2s. Suddenly there's hundreds of thousands of these CPUs on the market in the used hardware, and the prices drop, right? Well, that's kudos for us that don't need the current $10,000 generation level enterprise hardware. We can take these things that were probably $5,000-$6,000 and then buy them for a couple $100. Lo and behold, you have a very powerful machine that you can turn around and play with at home.
Yeah, and a lot of this, none of this stuff is really marketed because companies don't need marketing to know what they need to buy. So this stuff is kind of, if you've never heard of it, I know it was a real eye opener for me. I used to see it as stuff that was really exotic because I hadn't had much experience with it and didn't know what it was capable of, and
just didn't have the knowledge.
Yeah, just didn't know anything about it. And so in my mind, it was super exotic, and it was just such a cool thing seeing all this stuff that you could get used that was better and cheaper than some of the new stuff that's out.
What other stepping off point is there? I mean, if you look at Linus's stuff, he does cover some server things, but really it's not the old stuff. Or even if he does cover old stuff, it's obscure and too old. Like he covers, it was like a 16-core quad socket Opteron build, and
oh yeah, I remember that one.
But that was more of a freak show just to see if they could get it going.
But so he does it for entertainment, first of all.
Right.
Yeah.
He doesn't. I like Linus. I have
I do
Linus
too.
tech
I
tip
watch his
shirts.
videos all the time.
Yeah. So like
He's
this
a
is
huge
not knocking.
unmade shill.
Yeah.
So we like him for that.
This isn't knocking him, but I'm just saying like, there's not a whole lot of like, here's what you buy if you want to get into this. This is like, hey, look at this. It's neat. It's weird. It's cool. Like, that's kind of it. Level 1 Text is actually pretty good. I like Level 1 Text, but they focus on newer server stuff. They talk about like the new Ryzen.
They're probably sponsored by that. So I mean, you
you
can't really fault people that are on YouTube trying to generate revenue, make it their job, that they're not supporting old used hardware. There's probably not a lot of advertising funds, for people that are looking for old used hardware.
Right.
And we weren't docking them or anything like that.
No. You're not raking in the bank getting all these people to buy used eBay hardware, right? You make a couple bucks on the side, you buy a couple new toys. That's about it. I mean, this is more about what we enjoy doing, spreading it to others that get the same bug, sharing that with them, sharing, the collection mentality of this kind of getting the media, getting involved. It gets you interested in the technology, and that draws you to learn about ZFS storage, where I had never touched, FreeNAS or BSD Unix. And I got into it and learned about BSD Unix because I was going to run a FreeNAS box, and I learned all about ZFS storage, and that just sucked me in. And then I'm like, oh, what else is there to learn and what else is there? And then I start learning about VMs and I learn about Dockers, and now I've learned about like Kubernetes and Docker Swarm and how that's being integrated in large scale on these big businesses. This is applicable technology that companies are moving forward with, that you can take very marketable skill sets, right, from a hobby.
Well,
so I
and
think
here's
it's
the other
very
thing.
neat.
Here's the other thing. If I don't have any problem with any other tech YouTubers, really. There's a couple I can't stand, but that's not really what I'm getting at here. Like how, if Linus has his own Discord server, do you think he's sitting in the Discord server chatting with people, like legitimately working on stuff with the community and trying to troubleshoot stuff and trying to learn from them as much as they're learning from him? Like, it's not really like, and not to sort of toot my own horn here, but like all of the other moderation team does it too. Like, we're all here. We're here to engage with the community. We like doing it.
We've
like,
made friends.
Yeah, we're all friends because
this
of
community, right? We game together. We give each other shit. We do AMAs for people,
Yeah, I mean, I think the only two people that really knew each other before all this really started was me and Manbear, and that was because we were both moderators of the Plex subreddit.
Yep.
And he took an interest in the hardware stuff, and we just kept talking, and we're like, if we're gonna keep writing this stuff, like, we need to split off on our own. Like, we need to do something about it.
And then you stole my wallet.
Yo.
I stole your wallet. Not literally. Okay.
Welcome
Well,
to the stream.
Look, your
JY.
money's not doing anything in the bank anyway, okay?
What's up?
Hey, Jay.
We're just talking about the stealing of Manbear's wallet virginity by JDM.
Mm.
All right. I think that's... okay. TLDR for that question. Why did you start doing it? I enjoy it. And I didn't see a community out there for this sort of thing. And when you don't see something and a need's not being fulfilled, you create it yourself. And if you're not happy with happy with the way that something's being done, you do it yourself. And I don't know, it's working out pretty good so far. We almost have 2,500 people in Discord.
God damn.
Yeah, that's from a year.
See what happens when you hoard porn?
So much midget porn. Here, wait.
I only watch elderly amputees.
Demonetized.
Someone make this into a GIF. This bad boy can spit so much midget porn.
Jesus.
Demonetized part 2.
Okay.
And it's gone.
You're gonna lose that 50 cents a day on YouTube. You better be careful.
Oh, man. So much for the hookers and blow, JDM.
Start my own Discord with blackjack and hookers. Cooper says, do you prefer SAS or SATA for Plex media storage, and why? Other than the cost, is there an inherent disadvantage to either? For what we're doing, no. Cost per terabyte is pretty much the most important thing for media storage. There are other considerations, like don't buy Western Digital Blue drives, for example. Like, they're just awful.
Get NAS grade quality discs are better, either
If you
enterprise
can,
or
yes,
grade.
which also
Yeah.
includes Western Digital whites and reds and things like
Right.
that. But like, even the Seagate SMR drives aren't the worst, although they have awful write speeds. I mean, for media, they're fine.
Don't use them for parity drives. They're fine for storage. Just
Right.
understand the limitations on them.
Yeah, and just know what you're getting into. But as far as SAS versus SATA, SAS drives are normally they normally take a little bit more power, and they're normally higher RPM. Because with servers, you got to have that IOPS even from spinning Rust. So like my 4 terabyte SAS drives I just got, they take about, I think, 7 watts versus like 4.5 or 5 on a SATA.
Egyptian magician. I don't think there's a consensus of what's best. For me personally, I would suggest starting with whatever you're most comfortable with. If you're comfortable with Windows, start a Windows server.
What are you referencing?
He's asking about what's best to run Plex on
What? Where?
in live stream chat.
Oh. Okay. I must have missed something.
But with the SAS and SATA drives, a lot of times we link the SAS drives because they're cheap, and a lot of people can't use them with normal desktop setups, but we can.
Yeah, we can because we have SAS controllers built in, like with the NAS Killer 2 or the Anniversary build.
And yeah, and that's why they're cheap, because there's not a big market for them.
The other thing too is that this isn't talked about a lot, but the inherent advantage to SAS really kind of only applies to enterprise, where they're a generation or two ahead of where SATA's at. Being that we're getting this stuff used, SAS 2 and SATA 3 are kind of equivalent. So as far as the interface goes,
yeah, they're equivalent.
Yeah, there's not much advantage for, like JDM said, for what we're doing here.
Yeah, like SAS 3 is 12 gigabit, and there's no SATA equivalent for that right now. So there is something to consider there, especially with like solid states and stuff like that. But for hard drives, you're not even going to hit 3 gigabit. So, like, really, like the SAS drives that we've recommended in the past are the 2 terabyte EMCs, which you can get for like $15 or $10, depends. And 2 terabytes for $10 to $15, even $20 is just nuts. That's a really, really good deal. And
they're usable with what we deal with, and they just work.
And then
they're
the
cheap.
4 terabytes, which were anywhere from $50 to $60, even at $60, are still a really good deal. That equates to essentially a $120 8 terabyte drive. I know it takes up more slots to have 2 4 terabytes than a single 8, but still, I mean, price per terabyte is pretty good.
And for new, obviously the Western Digital.
Yeah, the Easy Stores, MyBooks.
Right. Those are going to be your best bang for the buck on the 8 terabytes.
Of course.
Right.
Who's the real Dwell? No one knows.
Don't dwell on it.
Oh, shit. What was the t-shirt that we're going to do? Don't dwell on it, just exclamation point upgrade.
Oh, we need that meme format like yesterday.
Yeah. Who's your favorite user? Definitely JWire.
Wow, I'm out. I'm done.
Why me?
Done. It's been a good.
It's always
been a good
JWire.
year.
Who's the worst user? JWire.
All answers are JWire.
What excuse works best for the wife when buying 10 gig switches? That's gonna be a hard one. It's probably because they're gonna be really loud and really hot too, and you could probably just direct link, so you don't need a switch. But I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, unless you're, wiring the whole house for 10 gig, don't buy a 10 gig switch.
I wonder if you could build a 10 gig switch, like an 8-port 10 gig switch for.
Yes.
No, I know you can. I know you can. I'm just saying, price wise, like.
Would it make sense or not?
Yeah.
If you had the board, I guess already, like one of those.
It'd probably be cheaper to get like a used piece of hardware and then just build your own, and with a bunch of PCI NICs for 10 gig. It'd probably be the cheapest option.
Like 2 or 3 X540s.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Maybe I'll price that out someday.
But I got to tell you, I'm in love. I'm in love with the Unify. That shit is fucking the bomb.
Unify?
Yep. I got my uncle all wired. I'll be doing my house next.
We're all Unify shills, I think, for the most part.
Yeah. I've seen the light.
Did you just recently see the light?
Yeah, once I could stream 102 megabit 4K direct stream wirelessly.
Yeah.
I was like rock solid for an hour, no hiccups. I'm like, from across town, not the same house.
Oh,
I'm like, okay.
okay, I'm in.
You had my interest, now you have my attention.
Is this an AC Lite or an AC Pro?
This was the AC,
LR?
not Pro, LR. Yeah, it was the LR.
Someone, let's see, Surgster1 says, what kind of hardware would I be looking at to multi-stream from a dedicated gaming PC to another PC connected on the same network? I'm not exactly sure
Ethernet
what you're
cables?
saying. I'm not maybe you can clarify in YouTube or on live stream chat. Are you saying running multiple gaming VMs like Linus does in Unraid? Or are you saying play some games and then also like use a capture card or something like that and then encode and then stream from the streaming box? Because those are two very different things. Sorry says, is sorry retarded? Yes. Just kidding. I don't know. SupX Limited says, what is a reasonable amount of money to spend on tech each month? Also, when purchasing new tech, how long should be considered a useful life of tech in 2018?
5 years on average.
Well, you say 5 years, but we're also using Socket 2011 shit.
I think if we're saying consumer tech, I would say it would remain relevant 5 years. Enterprise tech, the sky's the limit. What do you consider useful versus
right?
Not,
Right.
You know,
But I mean,
I personally run nothing 2011, and I'm perfectly okay with that.
But
That's
you
why I
run
have
stuff
3
that's
builds
older than
stacked up.
2011.
Right. I run stuff significantly older than the 2011 stuff. So I'm happy with where I am at performance wise.
And as the price goes and spending, that's also extremely subjective from person to person. What's your discretionary income, right? My discretionary income may not be the same as JDM's discretionary income for spending on electronics.
And DDR4, god damn.
Yeah, I think you should take a step back and look and say, like, what are the goals I want to accomplish on a very broad scale, and what is the minimum amount of hardware that you need to accomplish those goals, and then say, does that hardware fit an upgrade path? Like, is that, are you locked into that hardware, or is there something that you can move on past that in the future? So for most people, like, if your minimum goal is to have a NAS that does storage, and that's pretty much it, but you might want to upgrade in the future. Like the NAS Killer V2 is great for that reason, because you can get a $190 NAS or less.
Right. I think the CPU market is also very different. We've kind of hit a ceiling as far as getting generationally better and better, like every
absolutely.
5 years.
Yep.
So the CPUs, especially like these enterprise grade Xeons, are going to be relevant for many years because of the core count, and as more and more hardware and software becomes multi-core friendly, it's less of an issue, you know, unless you're gaming and you need extremely high single core CPU, and even new games.
Speaking of which,
right?
I was thinking about my desktop, which I just changed, and I have a 2-part video series on YouTube about it. It's not super interesting, so don't expect anything special, but I'm now using the E5 2687W, which is an 8-core, 16-thread part. And I was like, I wonder what, I was thinking to myself, like, what processors on the market today are similar to that? And it turns out the Ryzen 7 1700 is almost identical. But if you look at the passmark scores, and even the single passmark scores, let me pull it up. And you will find something very interesting. And that is that the E5 2687W, which was released in Q1 2012, has 14,392 passmark. And the Ryzen 7 1700, which is completely stock, of course, not overclocked, released Q1 2017, has about 500 less pass mark. And the single thread rating are almost identical at 1862 versus 1862 on the Xeon and 1775 on the Ryzen. Now, the TDP and presumably the power usage on the Xeon is much higher, but that's fine. And what AZ was saying was that, like, I'm sorry if you can't see this, my camera's in the way. I'll kind of do this. Okay. AZ was saying was, there hasn't been a whole lot of improvements in the CPU space, especially. But what they have improved on is power usage and
heat, right?
Heat. Well, and an extension of that, heat, because really,
power usage and heat are hand in hand. Right?
Yes. And even that, over the past couple of generations, has been minimal. So it's kind of interesting. It's just something to think about. So we're not really losing a whole lot as far as performance. Even the power usage is not that bad. I've done tons of power testing. Everyone says, oh my God, dual Xeon, that they're old. They must take like 800 watts of power. They're just complete power suckers. It's just not even true. It's not even close to being true. It just really depends. It depends on what you buy.
Right. And you have to consider also, if power is really that critical, then if you're using a lot of smaller old hard drives, say you want like 40 of these 2 or 3 terabyte drives in an array, each one of those takes 8 to 10 watts a piece, right, while they're spinning on average based on manufacturer, right? Some of them go up to 15, some are a little lower, but give and take in the 8 to 10 range is a good ballpark for averaging that. If you're using larger disks that are more expensive, initially they're going to have lower power costs because you're using less of them, or if space is a concern, right? You have a lot of variables that you want to consider when you're planning your build out, right?
Yep. Let's see what else. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
No.
Nope.
Any other questions in chat?
There's a couple questions on this sheet that I didn't get to yet. Let me just...
Oh, what do you see the future in Unraid, especially after the rebranding? I think they're going stronger than ever.
Yeah, I really like the rebranding. It looked pretty cheesy before. Now it looks somewhat professional.
I'm running the 6601 RC1 for the last week now, and it's fantastic. So if you're interested in running the beta, it is rock solid. And anybody that does Time Machine, it's running the new version of Samba, so Time Machine is again supported in the new version.
That is a good feature to have. And it's not, I guess you'd say it's, since it's an RC, not a beta, but still, it's awesome. I'm looking forward to it when it kicks out on the stable channel as well.
Yeah.
Who said this? Let's see. Bats says, "How can I become the storage service provider for my family?" I don't really know how to answer that.
Why would you want to do that?
Yeah, don't do that. Tell them to sign up for G Drive and
Yeah.
get the what is the 1 terabyte for $2 a month?
It's 100 gig is 2 terabytes a month.
Wait,
did I say that?
What?
100 gig is $2 a month.
Okay. I think you said 100 gig is 2 terabytes a month.
I
4
did.
days.
My brain got bored
Okay.
there.
5 days. 4 days.
All right. Yeah, that's probably not a good idea. You don't want to be responsible for their files. That puts a lot of burden on you, and not to mention potential legal issues depending on what their files are. It's just not a good idea.
I mean, if you want to create a file server for their household, like centralized storage, that's a different thing. But
Yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Put in an NAS, set it up, use this as an exercise. Be like, hey, it's just, here's how much it's going to cost, or maybe you'll buy it for them. Who knows? But build something and make it reliable, make it easily accessible, and show them how to use it, and be done with it.
don't let your mom put it in a closet because she wants to hide it.
Mommy,
Mama.
Lois.
In your previous AMA, you commented that you were going to do a video on the GA7 TSM's IPMI. I did, and it's kind of the same line as the BIOS videos. They're not particularly fun to make, and there's not a whole lot of benefit to doing so. I say that when I know people will benefit from it. However, if you join the Discord, if you're assuming you're already in the Discord, if you go to the channel for that motherboard, you just say, how do I use the IPMI? Like 300 people will start talking at you on how to use it. So that's probably the easiest way. The Gigabyte IPMI is a lot different than the Supermicro IPMI, so unfortunately I don't have a whole lot of experience or necessarily need to mess around with that right now. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
Never used it, so
Yeah, it's a nice feature that is totally not necessary. So honestly, for most of my builds, I don't use the IPMI. And if you want to figure it out, well, you have a Supermicro board, don't you?
Yes, I bought it.
Okay, so
with
that's
the
why
intention of having it. So
right. So that's why it's easy to use. I think with the Gigabyte boards, it's just a nice
pain
to
in
have.
the ass.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a pain in the ass, but it's also a nice to have. Like it's not something you
Right.
get and you're like, I bought this board because it has IPMI. It's probably not. So
Right.
it's there if you want to use it and you want to figure it out. But I don't know. That's all I have to say about
Gents,
that.
I gotta go, but thanks for all your input so far. I appreciate you guys and the work you do.
Hey, thanks. Thanks
Is
for helping out with the live stream.
Yeah, thanks, Faultline. See you.
AZ's voice is fantastic. Disagree. It could be better. I'm gonna give it a light B minus. What is the worst OS to use with the NSFW build, and why is it Windows 10?
I think you kind of answered your own question there. But the thing that we saw today earlier was trying to help some guys out with driver issues, and it turns out Windows Server just has the correct driver that has no issues. Gigabyte on their website doesn't have. They don't have one that's current, first of all, and I think the one they have that is current borks once you install it.
It
So
borks the
that's-
OS?
Yeah, it borks Windows 10 when you install the current version, I guess. And the one that's included with Windows Server 2016 just works out of the box. You don't have to update it. So,
Nice.
yeah, you kind of did answer your own question there, but the answer to that is use Windows Server if you want to use Windows. It's server-grade hardware, so it makes sense that it would have server-grade drivers built in to the
Wait, I wonder if you could
ISO.
download the X540 driver from Intel.
Yeah, they tried that, and it borked. So it just Windows 10 just seems to have an issue with it. But
All right,
you know,
well, I'm
that
gonna
being
have to play
said,
around.
it is a consumer OS. So
I've never had a problem like that, and I'm gonna play around with it and get back to you. because
Yeah, I'm
I
not.
feel like
I
that's
am
not
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 suggesting
you,
that.
collective you.
I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting that that should be the case, but that's kind of what makes sense in my mind. You know, server OS, server.
Right. Yeah, I mean, obviously it was
Seems like a
definitely used
no-brainer.
for that. It was not like a workstation board or anything. It's, server board. So, should you buy a pre-built workstation or follow one of the build guides that have most of the parts missing and take hours of searching online? Well, I feel like if you're asking this question, you should probably just buy a pre-built.
Yeah.
But
Do I want to punch myself in the balls repeatedly?
I mean, we've done most of the searching for parts for you. So,
And if you click a link and it's not available on eBay, well, just search the part number.
Yeah, if you're asking yourself that question, you should definitely buy a pre-built. Because maybe researching and learning how to do this stuff isn't for you.
well, or at least maybe you're not at that point yet.
Yeah.
Not to say it's not for you in general.
Maybe it's not for you yet.
Right.
If you're looking for the easy button, this is the wrong Discord.
Right. Well, not necessarily. I mean, we do have the pre-built guides, and
If this is your first time building a computer, this might be a little daunting because it's not quite the same as building a workstation.
well,
So I can see that maybe.
or you could just buy a cheap like X8 SIL or something, and you don't have to worry about screwing it up because the motherboard's $30 and the processor's $20, and it's spend a couple $100 and have something to play with.
You know what you could do is you could him and haw for like 2 to 3 months until we all go insane and ban you from the server.
It's only happened like 3 times.
Right, because that's my favorite thing that
And
happens.
then you decide that the laptop is the right way to go, and then I'm be gone.
Just
And then
a, just a
they go to
laptop
another
with like a USB hard drive is peak performance.
peak performance.
USB flash drives in RAID 0
Mhm.
with
Plugged
an SD,
into,
with
plugged
an SD
into a
card,
battery bank.
Yes, with an SD card parity drive.
Yes.
Uh,
I'm rubbing my nipples with ghee right now thinking of that.
it's an SDXC, so it's meant for performance.
With glee or with ghee?
Ghee is
clarified
with ghee,
butter.
Clarified butter.
Yeah.
I like that. Got to get rid of those milk proteins.
Yeah,
There's no chafing.
hashtag keto.
Oh goodness.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Always the best.
pre-builts. We have nothing wrong. Like we have no qualms with pre-builts. Pre-builts are fine. Go for it if that's what you want to do.
It really just depends on what level you're at. If you're feeling like your build is going to be a little bit daunting, then definitely look into a pre-built.
Why is there no love for ESXi?
Plenty of love for ESXi. It's just a different
Faultline,
tool.
yeah, Faultline uses it, and he just pieced out. But yeah, it's it's
I
another
think you
tool.
just have to ask the right people.
Now, if you want to run ESXi and then run your storage underneath it, we're going to laugh at you and call you an idiot. But you're entitled to do that if that's what you want.
I looked into that, running ESXi, and then like Unraid on it, and it's just not worth the headache.
Yeah, ESXi doesn't have any built-in like software RAID like storage management like FreeNAS and Unraid do. So it from what I've seen, you would usually have some kind of hard RAID implementation.
Like a
if
SAM,
you were going to use that.
SAM.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice Gazia raid or something. That's what we got at work.
Someone unknown says, "How do you feel about Mac Miller's death?" Not a huge Mac Miller fan. However, he's from Pittsburgh and he's good friends with Wiz Khalifa, who I used to really enjoy. So that's kind of rough. And losing someone to an overdose, regardless of how I feel about them, is not a great thing, especially in 2018 when there's so many ways to handle addiction and things like that. I don't really have any family that struggles with addiction or anything like that, but it still sucks. I mean, there's nothing good about it. despite how I feel about him and his music.
Suicide is a temporary solution,
Well, I don't. What?
or permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he committed suicide, right? Didn't he just OD?
OD.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, technically that's a suicide, but
Yeah, but it
Maybe
wasn't like an
without that intent.
intentional sort of. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, you gotta ride that fine line in between like severely harming yourself and getting high. So yeah, that's rough. It was completely shocking, especially someone aged. He's 26 and I'm 27, so it's kind of rough.
It's not like he's old like me.
Yeah, what are you like 70?
Yeah.
Yeah,
72.
like 170,
No, that's just my balls.
Oh,
They're
shit.
sagging.
170 centimeters. Just
Dragging him on the ground there, Grandpa.
Okay, so the question I've been avoiding, and kind of for a reason, Dedicated Blade asks, it's been a hot discussion on the Plex subreddit the past couple of days, but concerning the hardware transcoding versus software, just a general overview and bring clarification to our community. I plan on doing a response video to that. There's a lot of issues that I take with his testing methodology. I don't think that his conclusions, I'm referring to a specific video and I'll pull it up.
Are you going to juice up on yours?
I'm sorry.
Flex the whole time.
Flex the entire time.
Yeah. Get swole.
And look at the ceiling while you talk, but then like turn your eyes back down towards the camera.
It's gonna be really yoked when you do it. That's all.
You got to look like Bane.
What is this? So yeah, I'm not gonna Bane post on the guy, okay?
No.
So the
I think you're missing an opportunity.
thread that I was, the thread that I was referring to is Quadro P2000 hardware transcoding and benchmark and Plex. Long story short, he compares dual X5670, which are like 13K passmark, to a Quadro P2000. He fails to mention the price of the P2000. He also doesn't test the transcoding properly because transcoding, they're segmented. So he showed that 6 1080p transcodes somehow use 100% of his CPU usage, like flatline, which to me looks like a synthetic benchmark that he was running and didn't show any evidence that was from transcodes. So that seemed kind of fishy to me. It's just, there was a lot of like conclusions made there that were glossed over, and I was like, this seems kind of fishy. And not to say that he has like some sort of agenda or something. I don't know.
P2000 kickbacks.
Personally, I'm curious to see, like, I would like to get one of those just to throw it in the server since I have a high amount of volume and just kick it on and check out what the quality is like for
Well, you can't
myself.
hardware
and my
transfer.
users.
yeah,
It's
one
unrated.
thing he didn't cover was kind of how it looks with motion.
Yeah. So that was
It was
another big thing.
also going from H.265 to H.264, like exclusively.
JDM, I think you had the best point. He didn't talk about what that card costs.
It's a $400 card.
No, I think he briefly mentions it as a.
Yeah, but he
sub
didn't mention
$500
that the
card.
X5670s are $20 a pop.
No, yeah. He mentioned the card price, but he did not
He
mention the
wasn't
processor.
pimping it as a cost-effective solution. I think he was offering like
and
a
I-
lower power usage versus cost versus a little bit more compact. I didn't really feel like he was shilling it, but I don't agree with his methodology and his findings
right.
necessarily.
I'm not saying that I'm not saying I disagree with the findings necessarily. It is very interesting, and there's a lot of things that I would like to do some of my own testing on.
Sure, agreed.
It
I
kind of
think
felt that
that-
he was kind of pitching it as like a be all end all kind of a thing.
I don't want to be like.
Well, no, we don't want to assume.
We're in the end game now, Tony.
See, I don't want to be like, oh, it's because of our community, and it's because we post so many server builds and stuff like that.
No, not at all.
However, it's interesting to see all this like hardware transcoding stuff pop up lately, and especially with like the popularity of the builds and stuff like that. So I wonder if it's kind of like, haha, see, you don't need to use dual core or not dual core, dual socket Xeons.
I can understand the appeal of wanting to have a lot more transcode power in a smaller format, so you don't need maybe a dual socket server, right?
Sure.
And being able to have it in a smaller space.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people don't have unlimited internet, so being able to force people to transcode all the time and having that built-in transcoder is very appealing, right? I get that appeal.
Let me be 100% clear. I am in agreement. I like that. I like that too. If I were to put one of those in my servers and it performs, let's say we'll take it wholesale the way that he pitched it, it performs the way that he says, that would offload so much from my processors. I can do whatever I want. I can,
right.
I would use it in addition to what I have, not replace what I have.
Right.
Yeah, it would be good if you had like an established set of hardware that you didn't necessarily want to switch to a whole new platform or something along those lines.
However,
also, I guess like a new card is a little less daunting for like a beginning user than like, oh yeah, you just here's all this enterprise stuff, build it. Like,
right.
It's a little bit
simple
easier.
solution. People aren't looking for the pill; they're looking for the easy button. And I honestly, anything that gives us more options to make these things more powerful, I'm all for.
Yeah.
If it works like he says, that would be fantastic. I'm not hoping that it doesn't. My personal experience with hard-drive transcoding has been atrocious.
Yes, even on
I have
NVIDIA, NVENC, it does not look good in motion.
Correct. Yeah.
And there's nothing special about the P2000 that will make it look any different.
I'm curious, but skeptical.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm curious enough to spend $400 to test it.
Yeah, it would be nice if they're maybe half that, but
maybe I'll reach out to some of my hardware contacts and see if they have any.
I think as hardware transcoding gets better and just more efficient and looks better in general, this will be a lot better option.
Well, see,
but as like hardware transcoding stands, like
it can't really get better because all of the hardware transcoding, like the options are hard coded in the hardware.
That's my thing. Is like it's a fixed algorithm on the hardware that no matter whether it's a round peg or a square peg, it shoves it all through the same hole.
Yeah, so like
and
the
that's
FFmpeg
why it's
arguments,
inferior to
the
software.
Yeah, the arguments are hard coded into the hardware, or the firmware technically.
The firmware, yeah.
So when you go to OBS, for example, for those of you that streamed, and you see like the little FFmpeg, arguments, you can change that in software, and things will run differently. And you can change the quality. You can make it stress your CPU quite a lot. You can make it not.
And there's so many different sources on video, so many variables. Is it in X264? Is it in 4.0? Is it in 4.1? Is it 5.0, right?
Yeah, or 5.1, or
Right. So there's just so many variables that you cannot accommodate, and this particular one thing may look really good through the hardware transcode, but the 8 other things that are out there all look like hammered butthole when you try to shove them through that same hardware encode. That's something that you need to know, right? Because there's so much variance in how things are transcoded and what is a standard. Is it a web download? Is it a Blu-ray? What's the source, right? All these different bit rates going from 4K Blu-ray down to standard def, right? Is that even an option?
So one of the Reddit comments says, what is the video quality using hardware versus CPU transcoding? I had to turn off Haswell-based QuickSync because the blockiness was awful. Yeah, it is. The blockiness in QuickSync is like really, really awful.
It's garbage.
And then he responds, I didn't really notice much for quality loss. The image looked almost identical. If anything, it looked sharper. First of all, no, it didn't look sharper. It would look the same or worse. It would absolutely not look sharper unless. So my issue, he didn't show his transcoding settings from CPU. He could have changed them to very, like, what is the option? Very fast or something like that? That's I mean, he could have turned it all the way down, and then
To be fair, I've played with those and I've seen zero difference
yeah,
in quality.
Yeah,
So,
but I'm not accusing him of wrongdoing. I just wish that there was like maybe a little bit more to support this, and
Yeah, I mean, he could have a lot of it could have been cut just because it's not that interesting, or it's more specific to us as like more advanced
we're hyper
users.
interested in it,
Yeah.
and we're only getting the top level, right? And we want the minutia. We want all the small little details so we can go, okay, does it apply to X, Y, Z? And
but I can say without a doubt that I have never seen, no matter how many transcodes that have been run on any Plex server, I have never seen 100% CPU usage pegged straight across the CPUs in his graph like that.
Yeah, it's not constant. It's because I mean, what is the default? Like a minute?
It's 90 seconds or something like that.
Is it 90?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it should be going like up and down. It should be like a roller coaster. It shouldn't be just flat.
yeah, but you could change that. You could make a 10-minute buffer, open 3 4K transcodes, and just peg it to the fucking limit.
But that's not what the Plex guidelines say. That's not
right.
The
no.
the
Like
specific
it's an
material
artificial stressor, right?
Yeah, I mean, but that's not the specific material that he was referring to. And he's like, Plex says 2K passmark and 6 transcodes fit exactly with that. And it's like, I kind of lined up a little too convenient.
I mean, if it's for one, that only works if it's an exact science, which it's not. Like 2K is like rough. I mean, that's all we really have. Like
it's rough, and for most part, we found it to be pretty wrong.
Well, it's based on a 10 megabit 1080p at 4.1 on 264 downgraded to like a 5 megabit 720. That is what roughly the 2K pass mark per transcode is based on.
Yeah, but it applies to a specific equation.
How do they measure that pass mark? How do they run a passmark test after the transcode's running, and they're like, oh, we lost 2K passmark? Like, that's not how the passmark test works.
No, I think they're doing
running it on a 2K
estimates, rough estimates to begin with, right?
Right.
And they say that very specifically. It's not an exact science. There's just too many variables to factor in.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I don't know. Anyway, I'll probably do a video response where I break down my issues with it and maybe provide some examples as to how transcodes actually work, because showing a screenshot of the CPU usage doesn't really work for me.
It might be interesting for folks to understand how video transcoding actually works at the basic level, so they could understand how many different variables are involved.
Yeah.
That you could reference maybe in a separate video. Obviously, trying to keep it interesting, that it could be extremely dry for a lot of people. But I mean, it really gets down into a lot of nitty-gritty factors that impacts how much CPU it's going to use, right? And there's just, between all the different release groups and all the different video source quality, it's better to just give you a rough estimate and go from there, and just understand that it is a rough estimate, and then it doesn't, A plus B does not always equal C in this case.
I mean, A isn't even always A. Like it's
right.
It's just rough. It's a rough estimate. It's as basic as a kind of. It's more like it's a guideline, not a rule. I mean, that's all it is.
Yep. So, does anyone else have anything to say about that?
Bet they say don't sound sexy now after talking a little fucking tech.
Well, let's see. Does anyone have any final questions? Let's pull Dedicated Blade in just for a quick question. Hey, what's up?
Hey, yo.
And he muted.
Oh, immediately muted indefinitely. Technical difficulties.
Hey, Dedicated Blade, you there?
Oh, there we go. Now I can hear you guys.
Inline
Pulled
mute
you
or
in and
something.
muted yourself.
Well, I was listening to the YouTube page and I couldn't figure out which one I need to mute it at the moment.
That's right. Did you have a particular question or anything?
Blade.
Sorry, YouTube was unmuted itself. Okay, so in the two builds that have been around with the community, between the NAS Killer 2.0 and the now anniversary build, what's the next step now going forward? Obviously, with the anniversary build, there's a lot of room for upgrading, and the build is, pretty sustainable for a very long time. Is there going to be a push into the next Intel socket? And I don't know what that is. I don't know Intel sockets off the top of my head. In the next 3 to 4 years.
We have no clue, and
Yeah,
we never have any clue between builds.
Yeah, honestly, it's just going to be kind of whatever we discover next.
it's literally trip over random good deal. Like, whoa, well, what is this? And then build guide. I mean, like I joke, but that's kind of how
Keep
kind of have
talking,
like
I'm gonna
most
grab
of them.
something real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay, but that's kind of how most of the build guides came about.
Just finding nuggets out there and sharing it.
Yeah. Like the NAS Killer V2 was we found that gigabit board. I think it was Manbear or JDM that found that for like $45 under best offer. And we're like, well, we gotta make something out of that. Like,
it's what is it, 65 now? But hell, even $65, that is a killer.
65
board.
is still great. Like, that's still an amazing.
For all the stuff that it comes with, it's like holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
Better buy a few of these.
18 dims, dude.
Yeah,
I sold mine. I kind of regret it.
And it's funny because there was another build that came out like a few days before that, or a week before that. It was the Unraid 375
Oh,
build.
yeah,
And the NAS Killer just completely, we nicknamed it the Terminator because it just completely killed that build. It was a brand new build, and it was like, hey, this other thing's
it was
better.
it was a really good build at the time, and then we came across that board and we're like, oh shit.
This shit's all over the old
Yeah,
build.
it just demolished it. It was crazy.
Yeah. But I think the point is there's no schedule. It's just based on what people find out in the wild and find a need and shape it from there.
Yeah, and this stuff's all variable too. So some of these builds you'll see when you do the build command, they're crossed out, just because the deals aren't there anymore for those boards. And
It's all based on whatever the market is at the time. Like,
yeah, I wouldn't expect any of it to stay the same forever.
And it's
Stuff's
quite
gonna
possibly that these builds influence the availability of the hardware, and as that pool shrinks up, the no longer are viable, right?
definitely. Taking the gigabit board like we were just talking about. It started out at $45. They went out of stock from that seller. They literally sold them out, and they had to start.
We talked about this kind of earlier in the build. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No, you're good.
the seller, I think JDM had mentioned the seller only sold like 20 of them or something in like a few weeks, and like within a week they'd sold like 500 plus after the build was posted. So
the numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah, definitely had a huge influence on it.
You're welcome.
Well, nothing with this server, the refurb server stuff is infinite. Like, there's not an infinite supply of any of this stuff, regardless.
It happens in batches. So X company gets rid of 1,000 machines. There's going to be 1,000 boards out there, and once they're gone, it's kind of waiting on the next decommission to happen.
Love comes in spurts, baby.
Oh boy.
Christian Minecraft server.
Phrasing? Are we doing phrasing?
All right, so
we still doing that?
So a couple of you guys know about this, especially Ordinance knows about this. I don't know if he's still here or not, but I'm opening a motherboard right now, live on stream.
Unboxing.
There's a stream.
With bent pins.
There's a stream.
It's probably making a shit ton of noise right now, but I'm trying to.
Better than those chips, whatever, a couple of days ago.
Somebody link the stream so I can watch this shit.
watch the stream or watch JDM build a Ford Fiesta World Rallycross rally car.
Did you buy the box?
That moment when your Q&A turns into an unboxing video.
So this is half of what I do behind the scenes, and a lot of it doesn't even make it on video. I will buy something completely random off of eBay and see if I can get it to work.
Or Master Up.
Well, I know those work. This is a...
Oh my god, look at all those headphones in the background, you junkie.
This is
Something turn into it. It's turned into Z reviews back there.
I don't know what socket. What is this? This is socket.
Socket to me.
I feel like we should all save up and send him some wig mannequins to put back
Oh,
there.
dude, I would love that so much. Like you're laughing because you're like, oh, it'd be a funny joke. Like, no, please.
I'm gonna go to Kohl's and steal all the mannequin heads.
What did I even buy?
You need
Ordinance.
to
What did I buy?
address them all too.
I think it's 1150.
Florida man.
Okay, so this is
cuts
socket
off heads of mannequins.
This is socket 1150. It's an Inventec. I don't know what the hell motherboard.
Oh, did you grab those ones that we were looking at?
I
like
grabbed one of them
a week and a half ago.
Yeah, I grabbed one of them. It's got dual NIC, has literally 2 USB 2.0, a VGA, 4 RAM slots, couple PCI Express, and I think it's ATX. It doesn't really specify. It looks ATX to me. And it's got 2 SATA, SATA 3, and 4 SATA 2, and some sort of onboard SAS. No idea what the onboard SAS is. No idea if this board even works. And yeah, we're going to try to get it to work. So a lot of the hardware stuff is just trying stuff, man. It's
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that JDM does that he doesn't even tell us about.
I
don't even know about.
I tell donators and trusted chat about it, but a lot of it's not interesting enough to make it to YouTube or to make it to a guide or something like that.
Some of it just doesn't pan out.
Yeah, I mean, there's been times where I just buy something and it's just completely dead and it doesn't work, or it doesn't work with whatever hardware I have, and I tell the seller and they're like, "Oh yeah, okay, here's your money back," and that's the end of that line. And so, I don't know. It's honestly Patreon supporters that help me do things like that and spend. I mean, this motherboard wasn't very expensive; it was $20, but that's kind of the idea here is to get stuff that's not very expensive, get it to work,
and then benchmark the shit out of it.
Yeah, home lab on the cheap.
It is fun playing with new hardware.
Did we satisfactorily answer your question, Dedicated Blade?
Yes, you did.
One thing I would like to do eventually is a PF Sense guide and maybe a router build guide. For those of you that don't want to use a USG or need more features, want more control, things like that. And maybe I can do that on this because I think getting a processor that supports AES and I is a little bit easier, a little bit cheaper.
The USG is nice, FYI.
So it's 1150, right?
Yeah. Ordinance already sent me a processor and RAM, so
What'd you end up getting?
I don't know.
Oh, he didn't tell you. He just sent you.
I mean, I have it. I just don't know what it is.
Or what'd you send him?
It's an i3 4130.
I think that supports it.
It should, yeah, that supports AES and I. It supports ECC.
It supports ACC?
Yeah, that's why I
Oh,
sent you
shit.
ECC RAM.
Okay, well, yeah, there's so like for this board, there's no like you look this board up. There's no memory specifications. I don't even know if there's a board model number here.
Someone had mentioned that they couldn't get regular RAM to work on one of the like variants of it. So that's I went ahead and sent you some ECC and some regular just to
There's
see.
a bunch of pins at the bottom of the board, just labeled front panel. So I'm sure I'm gonna spend at least 30 minutes trying to figure out what the hell those do.
Sounds like Sounds like it was some kind of custom box.
Compare it to the. Oh, there you're holding it up. Hang on.
I mean, it's just so bare bones. Like, it's printed on the cheapest green PCB you can get, and
Send me a close-up picture of it. The Inventec boards that I have here, the two dual 11 ones, are based on the Supermicro plug from Panel Plug.
Ooh, fancy.
And the SAS ports are labeled just mini SAS.
It's a good thing it's not micro SAS. Ooh.
I mean, we actually have to look at the chips and like look at the chip numbers and see what the hell's on it. Because normally the little white text you can read and I don't know, you can see what's on it and things like that. But
if you decide to go with one of those P2000s, I'll donate $100 towards it. Just FYI.
Maybe I should get a GoFundMe.
There you go.
I'll second that.
Go transcode me.
Go trans.
Oh. Hey.
People might donate to that thinking it's a different cause.
Yeah, I was like, don't abbreviate.
What, you don't support trans?
Listen, this is a
Training
very
me.
difficult time.
Listen, we just
Okay,
don't like
it's a very
hardware
delicate
trans,
time.
okay, guys? Just not
Jesus.
hardware.
God.
I would specifically request as my donator video.
We've
If you just slap your case and say you can slap 20 4K transcodes on this bad boy.
Oh God! Don't even get me started
So
on,
much trans.
on his 4K transcoding and him not even saying that was a bad idea.
That sounds like a J-Wire video, slapping a case and saying you can get 20 out of it.
You can get so many trans in this case.
What
Consider it done.
We straight
Which,
from God.
Which wine would you pair that with, J-Wire?
Probably the same one that was in the first video because that's the only bottle of wine in my house.
Talk about a sexy voice when mic'd up. J-Wire.
I could
That's why I
fap to
do the
that voice.
voiceover for a lot of videos at work.
Build it out of the fucking case. Shakes head.
J-Wire, talk a little slower, would you?
It's like that scene from Super Troopers. Ooh.
My favorite J-Wire say mini sass slow.
Say Team Ramrod.
Car Ramrod.
Car Ramrod.
Upgrade Ramrod.
Does anyone else in YouTube chat have anything to ask, or anyone in live stream?
Going once.
Is it the winner? Is it that the guy who keeps asking when the winner was announced on that one contest?
Oh, I never picked the winners for the Instagram contest. Let me do that on stream right now.
You have no idea
Didn't
how
he
hard
ask
it was.
What is Instagram?
Didn't he ask who the winner was, and he won?
Was the winner. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the winner.
I think he had unofficially won at least.
AZ, are you familiar with speed dial?
Yeah, is that like an instant graham cracker crust kind of thing? Because I might be down for that.
Instagram is when your grandmother is -- on your speed dial.
Oh.
Instagram. There you go.
It's the first number on your pager, AZ.
JJ, the king of beepers, hooked me up.
You guys do not know how hard it was to balance a processor on a flower outside with people walking by staring at me like I'm doing fucking cocaine.
Sweetie, please get away from that man. He's high. Leave him alone.
And then I stand there
Just
for
look
10
at you
minutes
like
trying to
you're
get the
deranged.
picture.
What's the hashtag?
JDM server.
Okay.
Now, the worst one was when I lugged my entire case outside and opened it up to take a picture. The mailman came by. He didn't ask questions. He just put the mail in the box and walked away.
Did she shake her head sadly and mumble?
You got raked over the coals on Reddit for that, didn't you?
Oh, I did. People are like, why did you take that side? Why did that side? Who would do that?
Who's Mr. Robot there?
Whoa, why is my connection going all weird?
Oops. Got some kitty issues.
Sounds like all of them.
Can you hear me now?
Man, is somebody
Yeah.
getting DDoS? Like, what happened?
It's Discord.
Wow.
It was
That was,
Discord.
uh,
I disconnected and reconnected, and it seems okay.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah, I think the server took a shit.
I stayed, and y'all are now fine. That was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my voice connection was getting red, and I'm like,
Yeah, so-
that's not good.
Somebody had the courtesy of calling my outdoor pictures coquettish, so I tip my hat to that person, whoever that was.
Coquettish.
And by hat, do you mean fedora?
Trilby,
do.
guys. It's a trilby.
Malaysia.
I found them to be a bit parochial. You know?
Are you assuming my hat type?
Yes.
Did you just assume that my hat has a brim?
Somebody's getting their CPU pollinated there.
Gosh.
Yoink.
And I really like the Amazon boxes, or the boxes in general in front of the door.
I like that one too.
Are we
There's-
voting?
There's an inherent flaw with the RGB one. With the fans, I can't.
It's not in the right color. It's not in the right
I
order.
just lean back.
RBG.
I'm literally doing the Ethan Klein triggered gif in real life, just looking at that picture.
GBR?
Yeah.
Is that RGB?
Discord just had an aneurysm. What the hell?
Yeah. It knew you were doing an AMA. It's like, all right, wig out, go.
Oh, I think we're getting
I think.
pretty close to the end here.
Yeah, I think Nas for the Mass is definitely gonna have to win this one. He submitted so many freaking great pictures.
I don't know why, but the Amazon packages by the door keeps drawing me in.
That's the same guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I concur.
That kind of sums up the serverbuilds.net experience.
Never-ending thing.
Yeah.
And then you find out your roommate ordered a bunch of fucking cookies, and you're like, "Son of a bitch, that's supposed to be my hardware."
I'm not gonna be the one to get mad at cookies, okay?
Wait.
my
What's the tag for
CPUs?
this?
I have keto rage, okay?
Fair enough.
It's JDM server, JWire. Anyway, I guess that'll close it up for tonight, and we've run pretty long as it is. It's been 2 hours and 18 minutes. So
We
Thanks.
just need JWire to slap this video and go, we can sit so many questions in this bad boy. Call it a night.
Okay, Alan, that meme in Trusted is fantastic.
Yeah, that needs to go. That needs to go into public. Did I get the phrasing right on that, or can it be better?
Oh my god.
That's pretty baller.
Oh my god.
Hold on, I gotta go change the fucking Meeseeks command.
Can you make it
That's gotta
Comic
be it.
Sans?
Well, no, make it just
Oh,
do it.
God.
I'm gonna put this as the YouTube thumbnail.
Do it, come on.
I feel like that text needs to be like dropped to the bottom though and centered a little more.
Well, that's a template, so you can only like crop the picture to make it go up or down. You can't like move the text on the.
I would say if
generator.
you change one thing, change the D and dual to lowercase, so it looks like an actual sentence.
I feel like we've got to work Dwick in there too. I don't know how yet, but I'm
Anyway,
thinking about it.
thanks for everybody hanging out. It's been 2 weeks since we did the last one. It'll probably be another 2 weeks till we do the next one. If you have any further questions, comment in the YouTube video. I know these live streams probably don't get as many views as the rest of them, but if you watch them, hopefully you enjoyed it. And you enjoyed our degeneracy as well. So join us on the Discord, and you can experience this on a daily basis.
I will poison your soul whenever you're ready.
Oh, who won Overwatch? That's a good question. Let's finish with that.
Nobody. Nobody.
Nobody ever wins Overwatch.
No one.
Defeated.
Which one did we spend like the most in depth? Like what? Like there was a question that we spent a while on.
At least for me, it was probably the hardware transcoding one. That was a good 10 minutes, maybe. 15?
At Dedicated
It's
Blade,
either-
are you still here?
It's either
Yeah, I'm
that
here.
or
Do you want a copy of Overwatch for your solid question?
I will gladly hand it off just because I already have Overwatch. So
Okay.
I would say the next guy is you talked about like raids and versus unraid and stuff like that. We talked a long time about that.
that's just because I never shut up.
Yeah, actually, that was a pretty long question.
Who asked it?
Was that the Raid 5 guy?
Depends on what day it is. Gets asked a lot.
See, that was
Blue Camel asked a bunch of good questions this time, so I think he
Yeah.
asked the Free NAS versus Unraid, and then I asked a couple good questions. Let's see.
the free NAS versus unraid. That was the really long. That was the question we spent a really long time on.
I can make my own spin on this. Whoever posts the best picture of their build in the chat, I'll give the Overwatch code to.
This is not sanctioned. Let me ask Blue Camel if he wants a copy of Overwatch first. Anyway, gonna wrap this up, and we'll give that away in Discord. Thanks for everyone for stopping by, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you in the next one.
Thanks.
Peace out,
See ya.
Cub Scouts.
Hola.